Hi, I have a story I would like to read to you. It's actually in a book that I'm reading right now. It's called Five Sacred Crossings. It's really good. It's essentially a story within a story, so I'm going to read this to you now. Once upon a time, a certain Raja, a king, called to his servant from the balcony of his palace, saying, "Come, good fellow, go and gather together all the men of the village of Savatthi who have been blind since birth." From the courtyard below, the servant replied, "As you say, your majesty." And he went out to gather all the blind men from among the people of the village. When the blind men were assembled in the courtyard of the palace, the Raja said to his servant, "Bring in an elephant." The servant said, "As you say, your majesty." And he went out and brought back an elephant into the middle of the courtyard. The blind men encircled the elephant, and each approached it with his hands outstretched to touch the animal in all different places. The servant then went to the Raja and reported that the blind men had encountered the elephant. The Raja came out on his balcony and said to each blind man down below, "Tell me what the elephant is like." One blind man who had touched the head of the elephant replied, "The elephant, your majesty, is just like a water jar." Another who had felt the tusk of the elephant replied, "The elephant, your majesty, is a plowshare." Yet another blind man who had touched the leg of the animal said, "The elephant, your majesty, is just like a post." One more had felt the tuft at the end of the tail and said, "The elephant, your majesty, is a broom." The blind men began to then quarrel and shout, "Yes, it is. No, it's not. An elephant is not like that. Yes, it is like that." And so on until they began to strike each other with their fists. The Raja was delighted with the scene below and said, "Why do you quarrel and fight? If you were not blind, you would know that you were all encountering the same thing, but each touching only one part." I think that story is a beautiful illustration of something I was actually talking about a couple of weeks ago. Different perspectives, therefore different perception, causing differing opinions. It really points to that though our opinions may differ, it doesn't necessarily mean that anyone is wrong. What if we're all right? It's very easy and very common when we have an opinion that differs from someone else's to feel like we're right and they're not. Just like each of those men thought that they were right in what they believed to be true about this elephant and everyone else was wrong. And sometimes in some situations, maybe that is true. Maybe the other person is wrong. But other times, maybe not. What if you're both right? You're just looking at something from two different perspectives. So you have two different perceptions. And really what it comes down to is a lack of understanding. And so what it then requires is, it requires a desire and a willingness to gain more understanding so that you can actually see the situation or the person or whatever it is from multiple angles, multiple sides, and have a true understanding, and therefore recognize, maybe we actually are both right. We can still have different thoughts and both be right. There's a really great quote by Stephen Covey, who said, "Seek first to understand, then to be understood." We always want people to understand us, which makes perfect sense. We should want to be understood. But the message is that rather than trying to be so intent on making sure that our opinion, our thoughts, our feelings, whatever they are understood, we need to really try to first understand the other person. And only when we feel like we have a true understanding and they feel like we have a true understanding, then we can share about ourselves to then be understood. It's not easy to do most of the time, especially for so many of us, particularly in relationships. We tend to feel chronically misunderstood. It's a really big issue in relationships. That's a whole other subject, but that is a problem nonetheless. So we desperately want to feel like we are listened to, like we are heard and we are understood. And we then want to make sure, we want to try to help the other person to understand us. But what we really do need to do first is to try to understand first and ensure that they feel like they are understood. And then we can try to have them understand us. So my question to you then is there a way that you can try to understand someone or a situation or an opinion or a perspective a little bit better maybe today, maybe tomorrow, perhaps through asking some questions and open up a dialogue and have a conversation. And you might be surprised at what you find out. Maybe your opinions still differ, and you might still perhaps believe, yeah, I still think they're wrong. But you'll probably still have a very interesting conversation regardless. Or you might really truly gain a better understanding and realize, actually, I think we're both right. We're just looking at the elephant from two different sides. So be willing to do that, have fun with it, be curious, and be genuinely interested, and see what happens. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, and I will see you next time.